I'm going to attempt to find the source of the River Thames without using a map. Who knows where we'll end up, but we'll see. That's a Roman amphitheatre. Let's go down and have a sword fight. I've already been here. Where I'm going, I have no idea. Ooh, a river. Is that it? Is that the River Thames? Hello, how are you? I'm quite cold. It's a grey January morning, but I'm also excited because you join me in the lovely town of Cirencester. They call this place the capital of the Cotswolds. And just a couple of miles outside of the town centre here, there lies the source of the River Thames, Britain's second longest river, and a place that I've always wanted to visit. So we're going to walk there. But because it's not too far away, we need to make things a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to attempt to find the source of the River Thames without using a map. Now that means I'm going to have to use road signs and other clues around me to make my way out of the town centre here, across the countryside, and then to the river and its source. It might be a terrible idea. I will get horribly lost. But it could be a fun, magical mystery tour. Who knows where we'll end up, but we'll see. Indeed, I really had no idea what to expect on this cloudy winter's day. But I had set myself a few important ground rules for the adventure ahead. First, and most importantly, I wasn't allowed to use a map, nor a compass. Not on my phone, not a paper map, not even a map that I might encounter on a sign somewhere. Second, I wasn't allowed to ask anybody for directions. And third, I had to reach the source of the Thames before sunset, which today was set to be just after 4:30 in the afternoon. With all that in mind, I stood on Cirencester's storied market square with next to no idea where to go. In fact, the only thing I knew about the location of the source of the River Thames was that it's situated about 3 miles to the southwest of Cirencester, near a small town called Kemble. So to begin, searching for a sign to Kemble and attempting to navigate southwest were my best chances of finding the river's source. And luckily there was a clue right where I was standing. There's a little stone pillar, and if it's oriented north, south, east and west, like I think it is, then this side, with the Satyr Square, might be north. This side should be west, and therefore this corner should be southwest. My thinking wasn't entirely without reason. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Cirencester was a major Roman settlement, known as Carinium, and the town's streets were laid out then in a defined grid pattern. Now, unhelpfully for me today, those old straight roads were done away with in the Middle Ages. But following what I now thought was southwest, I ventured into the streets of Cirencester, passing by local landmarks including the Roman History Museum, what's purported to be the tallest hedge in all of Europe, and then a car park, in the middle of which was a building which held my next potentially crucial clue. Okay, so this is the old railway station of Cirencester. Used to be on the branch line between the Great Western Main Line and Gloucester. Now we don't want to go towards Gloucester because that's north of here, so we want to go the opposite direction. I believe Gloucester is back over there, and I believe southwest, the way I want to go, is down there. You can see this was where the railway would have once gone. Sadly though, I couldn't simply follow the old railway line all the way southwest to Kemble, because there was a supermarket in the way. However, just outside the big shop was a road sign, the type of clue that I'd come to be heavily reliant on for the rest of the day. So that's the kind of information we're going to have to go off. Southwest, those are the words we need. Chippenham, I think, is not the right way. Stroud, I think, is the right way. With the roundabout as a guide, I took the second exit, crossing Cirencester's ring road via a footbridge that took me into the local hospital car park. Is there a pavement to lead us out? I hope so. Or otherwise I'm going to have to go back over the footbridge. A quick walk around the corner revealed that there was no pavement, so I headed back over the ring road and decided to then walk further south to see if I could find a better route out of the town. It's at this point that I should explain how I was intending to navigate my way southwest towards the source of the Thames. With no sun in the sky to tell me my east from west, I attempted to use my sparing knowledge of this region of England to create a kind of mind map, and it looked something like this. With Kemble and the river's source to the southwest, other names that I'd be able to recognise on signs were Gloucester and Cheltenham to the north, Swindon, which I believed was roughly east from where I started, as well as the small riverside town of Lechlade-on-Thames, a place that I'd heard of before and considered as a backup destination if I failed to find Kemble. I could find my way to Lechlade and then simply follow the river all the way to the source. In hindsight, this was much easier said than done. But back in Cirencester, I had a breakthrough, with a handy bridge over the ring road that took me southwest. But before I ventured into the countryside, an enticing sign caught my eye.
Now this is completely the wrong way, but I've always wanted to see this Roman amphitheatre, and if I can find that, then the day won't be a total disaster. Those are the exterior earthworks of the amphitheatre, but if we climb over them, we should be able to see the main bowl. That's a Roman amphitheatre. You can see the outline pretty clearly, where the spectators used to sit, and you see how big it was. You know, huge grandstands for thousands and thousands of people to come and watch performances in an amphitheatre where gladiators used to fight. That's really cool. Let's go down and have a sword fight.
Cirencester's amphitheatre really is a special piece of history. Back in the Roman era, this town was home to as many as 10,000 people, second only in size to Londinium, or London as we know it today. And it's thought that this amphitheatre had capacity for an audience of more than 8,000, where almost all of Corinium could come to watch great Roman spectacles.
I'm gonna do it. Are you not entertained? So stupid. There's people walking their dogs here. That's so cool. I'm really glad. I may not find the source of the Thames. I'm more lost in the first sort of half hour than I ever anticipated, but I found the Roman amphitheatre, so we can take that as a success.
With this item ticked off my bucket list, I turned my attention back to the main objective, leaving the grounds of the amphitheatre and making my way southwest through a few pleasant suburban streets, which gave way to an industrial estate. This all seemed about right, but as I began nearing what I felt was the edge of the town centre, a local water feature caught my attention.
Now that is interesting. I know there's a river in Cirencester. I believe it's called the River Churn. Is that it? If you're from Cirencester, you'll probably know. Does it flow into the River Thames? Because it's going the opposite way that I want to be. I'm sticking with my mind map for now. Is that arrogant, stupid? I don't know, but that river could go to the Bristol Avon. It could go River Charwell. It could lead me anywhere.
Worried about the prospect of walking for hours and ending up in Bristol or Oxford, a far cry from where I needed to go, I stuck with my plan. And the urban area did seem to be thinning out, as I made my way through a new build area known as Kings Hill Meadow, on the edge of which was another promising sign.
Okay, that's a big development. That's a brilliant clue, but it's not all the information that I need. If this is the old railway line, I assume the one that goes to the station which we saw in Cirencester, then we know that it can get us to Kemble. But am I walking the right way?
In my mind, this was leading roughly west, and so I hoped that I could simply follow the old railway line all the way to Kemble from here. But after just a couple of 100 yards, my luck ran out.
That is not good. I'm going to go left.
This detour seemed to make sense. A footpath around the edge of the houses appeared to be leading towards a forest in the distance. So, assuming I was heading south, I could at least get out of the urban area and walk in the hope of hitting the River Thames in a couple of miles. But just before heading out into the countryside, I wanted to check a couple of nearby road signs to confirm that I was going the right way. And I didn't get what I was expecting.
Lechlade. I've heard of that, but it's due east of here. And if that's that way, back there is Lechlade, which the way I was going, that's not right.
It really wasn't right, and for the first time reality wasn't lining up with the map in my mind. The direction that I had been thinking was west seemed to actually be east, and soon enough, after checking a nearby bus stop, a devastating realization came over me.
How have I messed this up? But Cirencester is that way. Huh? Yeah, because it doesn't make sense for Lechlade to be east and that also to be... Kemble also to be east. So we... Scratch what I just said, we've been going the wrong way.
Yes. Having been walking for an hour and a half, I realised that I'd been going the wrong way. In fact, I'd somehow managed to walk almost perfectly around the southern half of Cirencester. And rather than leaving the town by the southwest, I'd come all the way round to its eastern side.
This is so embarrassing. I've got no sense of direction whatsoever.
This was a disaster. I was about as far away from where I needed to go as possible. Looking back, it appears that my fatal error here was crossing the footbridge over the river. If I'd followed what I assumed was the River Churn, I would have been able to get out of Cirencester, and in a southerly direction. But now, having wasted the entire morning, I had little option but to do the unthinkable. Walk back into the middle of Cirencester, and start all over again.
Hello, how are you? I'm not going to do it again. Let's just get moving. Right.
This time I went for an uncomplicated, surely foolproof approach. Leaving the market square, I began walking south, and my plan was just that. Keep walking south, and south again, until I reached the River Thames, from where I could surely simply walk all the way to the source.
When I had this idea, I pictured, seeing a weather vane on the church tower with north, south, east and west emblazoned upon it. It has a weather vane, but no NESW. Never eat shredded wheat, that's what I was taught.
Today, shredded wheat was the goal in mind, and despite having previously failed to keep track of southwest, this time round I felt more confident. And as I once again neared the ring road, a familiar friend seemed to appear.
It's called Riverside House. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is a river in Cirencester. It's called the River Churn, and I think I've just spotted it through the gate. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's just there, to my left. So that river exists. As I said, I don't know if it flows into the Thames or into another river. But it is flowing, I've just noticed, in the direction that I want to go, which it wasn't when we saw it under that footbridge, assuming it's the same river.
A plan was beginning to form in my head. Having ignored the flow of the River Churn last time I saw it, this time I decided to bet on the hope that it does actually flow into the River Thames. And so I'd follow it as far as I could out of Cirencester. And having now made my way to the outside of the ring road, I found myself in a familiar spot.
Okay, I've been here before. And just up on the right is the retail park and the footbridge over the Churn. So I'm pretty sure crossing over the river was wrong. I think that's where I went wrong. So I hope to God that I'm now heading south. I'm going to follow the river for as long as I can.
With things now seemingly going to plan, I hugged the river as closely as possible as I made my way out of Cirencester. A footpath followed its course for a while, but soon the river swung right through a series of back gardens. So I too turned right onto a country lane, trying to keep the waters in view at all times.
Okay, the river is, I believe, still to my right. It's going through lots of private property, so I fear I'm going to lose track of it. But we've got some road signs here. That might help us. Let's see. Let me tell you, that really doesn't help. That really doesn't help. We know we don't want to go back towards Cirencester. South Cerney. When I came in on the bus this morning, I went through North Cerney, which was on the north side of Cirencester.
If my reasoning was right, then South Cerney would be to the south of Cirencester. But I wasn't keen to walk 2 miles down a 50-mile-an-hour country road with no pavement. So, noticing a sign for a footpath, I opted for that, straying temporarily away from the river and the road to South Cerney, but hoping that there would be a way to link back up, not too far away.
So when I turned off to follow the river a couple of minutes back, I turned right, which would be west if I believe I was going south. So we turned right, walked for a bit, and then we've turned left again, therefore meaning we're heading south again. So, surely this is the right way. We're still lacking clues.
It was starting to feel like a shot in the dark, but with my southward strategy still seemingly on course, my spirit began to lift as I started making my way through some countryside fields. Just getting out of Cirencester, an achievement in itself.
Me, Cirencester, I can see the church tower, so we're further away than previously.
Unfortunately, being out in the fields with no map, it was going to be a challenge to know exactly where the public footpath went, and soon enough I was greeted with a dilemma.
It's one of those moments. I can go left, which I believe is east. I can go right, which I believe is west. That was where Cirencester was in the distance, and we don't want to go back there, otherwise I'm going to give up. So I'm going to go west. What I believe is west. I'm turning right, let's say that.
I believed this sliding doors moment was the one that would set the course to success. But as the path led me into more open fields, I soon realised that it wasn't a public footpath. In fact, I'd accidentally strayed into a farm, which seemed to have no way out. So I walked back to the same spot and took the left turn, now growing frustrated that I seemed to be walking in the direction of Cirencester once again.
I've already been here.
Frustration aside though, this was a public footpath, and it led me into something I'd been craving for a long time. A village.
Okay, so that answers the question what village we're in, which could come in handy, I don't know. But for curiosity's sakes, welcome to Preston, which is very serene. Village hall just behind us, a couple of lovely houses. I think, once again, I think I'm walking due south. Remember that road sign we saw when we were following the river? It said Preston, but it also said Cirencester. So what we've done is we've backtracked and then gone south. So that's good.
Continuing southwards, I made my way out of Preston and into another field. Passing by a trio of skittish young horses, I now really felt like I was in the countryside. But this came to an abrupt end when the footpath led across a massive A-road. Safely across, I managed to find a sign for a public bridleway, which I followed for what felt like a couple of miles as it snaked its way southwest. before popping out before another of those invaluable white road signs.
Once again, that doesn't give me much information. The nearest village on there is Ampney St Peter, so that's the one I'm going to go for. There is a village welcome sign just in front of me here, but that's 4 miles away according to this sign here. Driffield, which I thought was near Hull, it's about 3/4 of a mile down there. But I'm going to go for Ampney St Peter down this road.
This seemed like a sensible idea, but by now the clock had hit 1:30, and so I'd been walking for an hour and a half from Cirencester's Market Square ever since I began attempt 2. With the knowledge that the source of the Thames was only about 3 miles southwest of the town centre, I believed that if I really was walking due south, I'd have to hit the river soon enough. Otherwise, something might have gone horribly wrong once again. So, the village of Ampney St Peter, potentially on or near the River Thames, was starting to look like my last hope. And after following the road for about a mile, I did encounter a body of water, although not quite the kind I was looking for.
The road is flooded. Can I walk around it? Let's... That is very muddy.
Clambering along a muddy bank, holding on to thorny branches for dear life, I gradually made my way around this surely lethal puddle. And for my bravery, I was rewarded on the other side with just what I'd been looking for.
Ooh, a river. Now, what river is this? Could this be the Thames? We've been walking, remember I saw back at that sign 3.5 miles to Cirencester. Could that be the Thames? Or is it the Churn? That's really interesting.
This was by far the best lead I'd encountered all day. Having been walking for a few miles directly south from Cirencester, I'd hit a river, roughly where I would have expected to see the River Thames. I couldn't be sure what river this was though, and as excited as I was, one thing that didn't seem quite right was that there was no footpath following alongside this river. I know for a fact that the Thames Path runs all the way from its source to Woolwich in London, and although it doesn't stick to the riverside at every moment, I was now on the lookout for footpaths bearing the name of the Thames. Hitting a main road, I turned in the direction I believed to be west, the way of the river's source, which led me towards yet another delightful village.
Absolutely wonderful. But it did mention on the village sign that there's no through road. So it's unlikely that we'll be able to get through there. So we're going to head back to the main road.
Returning to the main road, I continued walking in the same direction as far as the pavement would take me. That turned out to be a pub, a short distance outside of the village of Ampney St Peter, where I noticed a country road that turned off to the left, in what I thought was a southwesterly direction, leading towards a couple more villages. But something here didn't seem quite right.
There's a sign telling me the villages of Quennington and Colne St Aldwyn are 4 and 5 miles away respectively. I think that's going to be my final gambit, because I've no idea where they are. This is fortunately a nice quiet road.
With the villages of Quennington and Colne St Aldwyn now added to the map in my mind, I began walking towards them, but at 4 and 5 miles away respectively, they were surely far beyond the River Thames. And just as I began readying myself for another hour's walk across the countryside, I realised something.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm really reluctant to go all the way towards Quennington and Colne St Aldwyn. North, south, east and west is completely out of the equation. It's fully cloudy, so there's no help from the sun. So I'm going to go into Ampney St Mary, little village. See if I can find a footpath or anything.
The problem with this was that I had just doubled back on myself after having turned off at the pub. In my head, I was now heading back towards Ampney St Peter. And as I made my way through the equally lovely village of Ampney St Mary, I realised I'd now lost all orientation, and began clutching at straws, looking for any signs of my goal.
Is that it? Is that the River Thames? If only. Maybe it's flowing into the Thames. I think it's probably flowing... Oh no, it's flowing into a pond here. Forget that. It's a pond just on the other side of that fence.
Now I was totally lost. Leaving Ampney St Mary, I felt that I'd exhausted all my options. A general southerly direction towards Quennington and Colne Aldwyn was too far away, and returning to Cirencester was not an option. By now it was coming up to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and so with no idea where I was, and with sunset just over an hour and a half away, I made the decision to return to Ampney St Peter, to see if I could get my bearings one last time. On the way, encountering another road sign which did nothing but further confuse my situation.
Hey up! I'm more lost than I thought. We've seen Driffield and Barnsley, so we've clearly somehow made it into Yorkshire.
This sign was no help either, so I managed to navigate my way back to Ampney St Peter, and having now returned to somewhere I'd already been for the umpteenth time today, and now fearful of getting stranded somewhere in the countryside with darkness closing in, I realised that I could go no further.
Is this the moment? It feels like it. The rain's coming down, I'm back at that main road, but even though it's got a pavement, I don't particularly want to walk along it if it's rainy and getting dark. I know how to get back to Cirencester from here, but I think this is as good a place as any to break out the map. So I'll go back into the village centre and let's give up and see where we really are.
Yes, once again, I'd failed. I was so lost and disoriented that finding the source of the Thames was now a long-forgotten objective. I needed to know where I was so that I could find my way back to where I needed to go that evening before darkness fell. So, having meandered around the Cotswolds for more than 5 hours now, I wandered back into Ampney St Peter, took a seat, and got out my phone to find out exactly where I'd ended up.
Okay, here we go. I've given up. Let's get Google Maps open and see where we are. Okay, so that's us in Ampney St Peter, and if we zoom out, we should be able to see where we are relative. Oh my god. No! We're east. Oh god. Oh no. We've gone the wrong way again.
This was the ultimate disaster. Having spent the entire day aiming for southwest, I'd somehow managed to leave the town of Cirencester and walk about 4 miles east, as far as humanly possible from the source of the River Thames. In retrospect, a simple walk to the river's source from Cirencester shouldn't take much more than an hour, and the perfect route would look like this. The route that I'd walked? Yeah. I made plenty of mistakes along the way, but the fatal error came at this signpost just outside Cirencester. Following the River Churn was the right decision. It does actually flow into the Thames. And if I'd made my way towards South Cerney or the village of Siddington, I would have been on track. In fact, at this point, I was less than half a mile away from a footpath called the Thames and Severn Way, which I could have simply followed all the way to the river. Brutally humbled by the whole affair, I packed up and walked out of Ampney St Peter. And with my tail firmly between my legs, I had some final thoughts.
So there we are. I got it completely wrong. Everywhere, every turn I took, everything I did was stupid, was the wrong decision. I left Cirencester in the wrong direction. I'm due east, I'm heading towards London, not the source of the River Thames. So I've failed. Disastrously. And I'm very sorry for wasting your time if you're still watching. But actually, if you are still watching, thank you very much. Now that I know where I am, I did actually enjoy that. I've seen some lovely places, a Roman amphitheatre, gorgeous villages, some lovely scenery. And although I got nowhere near the River Thames, let alone its source, I've had a nice time. And I hope you have too, watching it. Is this interesting? Watching me randomly, aimlessly wander around the Cotswolds? You tell me.
As I said, if you are still with me after that shambles of an expedition, then thank you so much. I was so surprised and very grateful for all of your wonderful words on the Nottinghamshire video. And although this outing was an even bigger failure, I did genuinely enjoy myself. Getting lost in a part of the country that I don't know all too well is something I've never done before. Maybe I'll give it another go on a sunnier day. But for now, I'll once again say thank you very much for watching. And please do let me know if you enjoyed this embarrassment of an adventure, or if you'd like to see another of these videos next time round.